welcome everyone to tonight's Citizens Climate University. It's on giving effective presentations. So before anything else though, what I'd like to do, I'm going to introduce both of our speakers here. We're going to have Jerry go first and I'll go through the agenda. But before we have a chance to really learn from both of them, one thing that I think is really going to help ground the context of our discussion tonight is why we have laid out the sequence that you're about to see. So on our website in community, you can actually see a link to this program, and I'll also show you where to kind of click on it if you're looking for the slide deck after tonight. But we're really keying in on a research-backed outline that Eco America has put together called the 15 Steps to Create Effective Climate Communications. And it's really emphasizing the importance of a specific sequence to highlight the ability to really connect with your audience. And so to emphasize, tonight's background follows, we've broken down these 15 steps essentially into 3 sections. The first of which is emphasizing, before anything else, the imperative need to bond with your audience, to start with people and to stay with them throughout the whole talk, to really have that personal connection, to humanize your own concern about climate change and what you savor, especially if you've stuck around CCL long enough, you know the E.B. White Save versus Savor activity is a wonderful way of demonstrating this. We also really want to acknowledge the fact that we don't have all the answers. We're here to propose solutions to manage risk no matter what the actual outcome or drivers are, and really emphasize the importance that this is something that is not only on a personal level, but a planetary or a national level as well. And again, all of these are coming from Eco America. The other big thing that the solutions decks will continue to emphasize is tying in local events, moving to what we know briefly through the science. Again, if anyone was on Congressional Education Day's Hill visits yesterday, many of the offices affirmed that we can agree on the solutions more than we can even agree on the science at times. So to move quickly through that, but to personalize both locally as well as future impacts in our own daily lives is absolutely key. And then lastly, and this is really what the solutions deck focuses on, as well as what Karen will be discussing with Rotary, what we want to spend the broad majority of time and what Eco America agrees on is an inspirational talk and really empowering our audience to be a part of the solutions. So that's why we have the outline we do. And without further ado, what I'll do is have a chance to introduce Jerry at first here. So Jerry is one of our CCL board members and has been involved with CCL for a long time. He's an economist that actually just retired and had his retirement party tonight. So that tells you the kind of guy he is after the party to still give a CCU on this lesson. But he's been in banking the last 30 years and holds a master's degree in economics as well as in climate policy. And has been lobbying Congress since 2006 for climate solutions. He's also been the co-lead for CCL's Presenters Action Team, which has become an essential nationwide program, hence his participation tonight. And we're really hoping to tonight's lesson to get to 3 main points: to help participants prepare their own slide decks for outreach and presentations, to really discover how to communicate with key and diverse groups, as well as how to personalize those slides to make connections with your audience, whoever that might be. And in order to cover these topics, what we'll focus on tonight is our sequence. I actually already went through why sequence matters. We'll pivot next to Jerry's talk about overviewing the actual solutions deck the presenters team has updated. We'll have about 10 minutes after that for Q&A and discussion. And without further ado, I'll pass it to you, Jerry, to launch right in to discussing our new updated Presenters Action Team slide deck.
Thank you, Brett. And thank you to all the participants for taking the time out of your Thursday evening to learn about this. I want to provide a little bit more context and sort of pick up on from where Brett left off. Mark is fond of saying it's the messenger as much as the message. He is also fond of saying we are a relationship-based organization. We're betting the ranch on relationship. The reason that I tell you that is what I'd like you to walk away with is taking this slide deck and amending it and tailoring it to make it your presentation. Make it the presentation that you feel comfortable giving. There's a couple basics that you really ought to have in there. You want to make sure it's accurate, but have it be an expression of yourself. And that will make it easier for you to be with your audience and relate to your audience. Okay, it's okay if there's things you don't know. You can say, look, I don't know much about that. I'll try to get back to you if I can. So have this be something that facilitates what comes from your heart and soul and reaches out to your audience, because ultimately what we're trying to do here, see, ABD in economics, I've been at this for 17 years. I'll tell you, this is a fabulous solution. We are doing incredible work. Our approach, our objectives, the way we're going about it, I believe, so it's real easy for me to do this in a presentation. I think that this is the best way you can make a difference on climate in the country. And that's sort of where you want to lead them, that this is at least one way and a fabulous way to make a difference there. So make it your own, have it be your own. I want to say one other thing real quick. Seize the moment. We have a moment. What has happened in this country is that there are events which pique people's interest in climate. And this is absolutely one of those time periods, and we should take advantage of it. It's tragic what's occurred between the hurricanes and the wildfires throughout the West, including my home area. But it has people wondering, wow, is this it? Is this what they meant? And the truth is, it is, right? We have been talking about the increase in extreme weathers, hurricanes becoming more powerful, a significant increase in wildfires or increased vulnerability to wildfires. So this is an opportunity for you to just go out into your community and make an invitation. You don't have to, but people are interested. And we're not putting anybody off. We're not making anybody wrong. We come to our audiences with respect and appreciation. And reach out is a great time to reach out and begin getting this vital word out, because I believe we do have a fabulous solution to the issue. Okay, having said that, I'm going to run through this, and by run, if you go to the action team and access this presentation, it's got full notes to it. You can study this and be good to go. You know, wherever you're weak, you can go do a little additional research. This is self-contained. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that I think I should highlight, and some areas that and at the end, I want to try to leave about 10 or 15 minutes for questions. Here's the intro slide, number one, number two. Oh, you were on to. So number two slide is a biography slide. Just put in your information there. Here's a couple of basic science slides. The first one, this is the basics of the greenhouse gas effect. Okay, and I think we're currently up. So one of the foundations that I would suggest we rely upon is the National Climate Assessment that just came out about a month ago. You can Google NCA4 because it was the fourth climate assessment. You can tell people it was distributed by the Trump administration. Okay, so maybe that gives it some credibility, because it to some degree represents the administration or their views. They've distributed it. So they would say we're up 1°C since 1900, 1.8 degrees. But this is the basics. Here's a slide that all quite familiar with. Yeah, there you go. The basics. Look at, since the Industrial Revolution, greenhouse gas emissions are way up. It's thickened the insulating blanket, and as a result, we have temperatures. Temperatures are just now up a bit. They're up the 1C, but they're going up much further. Go to the next slide, Brett, and we'll take a look at that. This is a real interesting graphic that I think can be very useful for us. Okay, this is from MIT's model, from the MIT Interactive. Now, we had the gentleman that helps lead this on our national call maybe 5 months ago. Great guy. Here's the story that we're trying to show. We're trying to show the relationship. You know, we're up 1C, okay? And we're showing here 3 potential different paths. You can't show them all, right? And it really shows the options to humanity. And my key, what I try to show people is, what difference can you make being involved in this movement? What are our objectives? Why does this matter? And here it is. I'm going to stick with the red line, current INDC, individual national limit, determined contribution. So this is what the world has promised. This is what some call current policy. This is what we say we're going to do. Okay, we're up 1. This would have us be up a total of 3.5 by the end of the century. What does that mean? Well, we're beginning to see, and I think this is so important for these presentations, we're up 1C and we're really beginning to experience some of the extremes, okay? Drought in California, we're ground zero, over 100 million trees dead. The incidence of flooding and strong storms is way up, and we've seen it in particular with the hurricanes. I've been doing this for 17 years. We used to have to talk about what the science was saying we would see. We're seeing it now. People get that. And I think what is useful at this point is to say, okay, we're up 1C, but where we're going is 3.5. So you think this, if you think that this is challenging and expensive for this country, we need to get our hands around. We need to come to terms with a 3.5C world. It's hard to imagine impacts that are 3.5 times what we've seen already. And that is exactly where we're heading. Okay, our solution, it's got to go beyond our borders. One of the keys to it is to inspire and incent action internationally, globally. But if we can do that, we can keep it to 2C or less. It'll still be tough sledding. We're looking at effects that you might characterize as twice what we're seeing, but manageable, hopefully manageable for civil society. 3.5, almost twice that. What I'm trying to impart to you, to impart to them, is the urgency of this. America doesn't quite get it. And now we've had a little bit of a tragic helping hand in the form of these devastating events, but it's real. And maybe it's bringing it home to roost for people. So you can take questions on that at the end. Hopefully that comes across. So there's the issue part of the presentation. Now we're going to talk about the solution. Next, we'll talk about some of the results, what CCL does and some of the results we've produced. So what we've got here, and you can flip forward a little bit, Brett, because I'll show them the whole presentation. You got a nice slide here that shows the basics of our policy. But now I want to give you a little background. Don't worry about the specific policy too much. I would say, concern yourself only with the simple principles embodied here. And here's why. Some of you I know were at the national conference. We had a panel. Stephanie hosted the panel with 4 environmental groups: EDF, National Wildlife Federation, Nature Conservancy, and Audubon. And they had one common theme, and that was we're policy agnostic at this point. EDF said, we're going to wait and see what comes from Congress. My point to you is, we're, you're looking at what's going on with the tax reform. If any of you are around for Waxman-Markey or Obamacare, Congress does things the way they do things. We've got some great suggestions here, but Waxman-Markey was 1,400 pages long. They're not going to take the simple 15-page policy that we have. So we don't have to worry too much about the details. Here are the principles. There's 3 key principles for you to know. Number 1, we know polluting shouldn't be free. Okay, in a free market economy, when something that causes harm and causes social costs to others, when that's free, you're throwing off the free market because you're going to overproduce and consume that good. We felt that was the case with cigarettes. People would happily smoke their stogies, and they would frequently enough become a burden on society in the form of, we would pay for their significant healthcare costs. We decided to internalize that externality. In other words, don't have that social cost be outside the market price. Internalize it into the free market, correct the free market, charge for that harm. Now, there's a little bit more to cigarettes, as you know, but that's all we're trying to do here. We're trying to correct the free market by doing what we know should be done, the right thing, and that is to charge for pollution, have it no longer be free. Okay, the second element of our policy, what we're suggesting is return all the funds. Don't grow government with it. Have it be revenue neutral. And this is a particularly important point for progressive audiences, because what we saw with I-732 in the state of Washington was, and elsewhere, some of the more progressive environmental organizations, they want to keep the money. They want to keep the money for wonderful things. There's so many great things you can do with money, right? They want to support renewables. They want to help the poor who are most affected, return all the money. Reasons for that. Stephanie mentioned the first one over the weekend. Stephanie is in policy with Danny. But I think this is really important. First of all, if you return all the funds, if you don't grow government with it, you're going to get that policy sooner. And we need climate policy in this country sooner, right? Time is of the essence. Time's a wasting here, okay? If we don't grow government with it, it's a nice centrist policy. We're going to attract support from both sides that is likely essential for a strong carbon policy, climate policy that we can both embrace fully here and can transport international. So it's going to be soon. It's also going to be strong. Something that people should be fully aware of. If you look at climate policy in this country, revenue neutrality is critical so that climate policy can be soon and strong. I think those are important, and they don't come out necessarily in this presentation. So go ahead. So that's our policy. Read about it. If you've got questions, I think my information is here. Todd's information is here. Jerry or Todd, 2 different email addresses at Citizens Climate Lobby. There's one other element to our policy. It's the border tax adjustment. If it's too tough for you to explain, all we're trying to do here is not disadvantage exporters. Okay, why? Political will. So how we do that is, if your costs of production are up because of the carbon fee, can you try to import or export your goods, your cars? You're at a competitive disadvantage, right? Because those folks aren't necessarily paying it. So as you ship your cars out of the country, we're going to compensate you for the amount of that, so that you don't lose any competitiveness. Same thing, cars coming in the country. Look at, you're making them domestically, but the costs of production are higher because of this carbon fee. All right, well, you're going to charge those cars coming into the country. That's the essence of the border tax adjustment. It's important politically. So, and I like the slide here. What about China? Yeah, well, China's moving. I think China will have a nationwide cap and trade and associated carbon fee by 2018. But the point is, yes, we will protect our exporting industries. Here's the point of this slide. This sounds theoretical until people realize that it has been implemented and is working beautifully in the province just to the north of the west, anyway, in British Columbia. And it's been a winner in that, again, prices started at 10, went up $5 a year. Hopefully you can see that in the middle of the screen. Even before it was implemented, when it was clear that it would be implemented, people get the message, right? We're going to have a carbon price that starts out low, but will ramp up exactly as CCLs will. You see what's coming. You next time you go to buy a car, when you consider insulation for your home, you begin acting out of not just the price today, but the price that's coming. Fuel usage over this time period dropped by 17% relative to the blue line, which is the rest of Canada. You clearly got mitigation. During this time period, GDP in British Columbia grew faster than the rest of Canada. So there was no harm to the economy. Job growth is up and it's popular. This poll was conducted a couple of years ago, but the people within British Columbia that were favorable to the policy was in the 70%. Within the rest of Canada, 60%. And as you all know now, the country is embracing a countrywide climate policy, in part because of the success in British Columbia. So this is not just theoretical. This can work. It has worked. This is just, it's a little bit of levity. It's good for the economy. It's good for the environment. It really is a win-win. Now we got a few slides with the Remy Report. This is analysis commissioned by us. You know most of this stuff. It's created, it is expected to create 2 million jobs over 20 years. That's not a huge amount of jobs, but it's something. It's a job creator. That's a key point. Go ahead. This is important. This is the economic analysis. It will generate the mitigation that we're looking for. 30% in 10 years, 50% in 20 years. That is the kind of result that if this type of, you look at the US is 17%. IPCC says we need to come down about 50% globally by 2050. So there's a lot of work to do. It isn't just us. We need to inspire and incent strong climate policy elsewhere. Ours is the type of policy that will do that. If other countries get this type of results, we'll be well on our way to the 2C goal. In fact, yeah, we'd be in great shape. Go ahead. So it produces jobs, it gets the mitigation done. It's nice to see a dollar amount of the dividend under this particular analysis. 288 a month over 10 years, 396 over 20 years. Go ahead. So that's what's coming in. Go ahead. Important to note the health effects, and that 225,000 lives would be saved. It's going to reduce the amount of coal emissions which come with or are associated with the particulate pollution that can have particularly difficult asthma and other health effects. So this thing is a win-win-win. Go ahead. You know, I'm breezing through these. They're important, but it's all there in the slides. And I think you folks know this stuff or can get it easily from the slides. This is a slide that wraps it up. There's an increase in GDP, increase in jobs, mitigation. The revenue neutral carbon tax is by design a zero-sum game. As you may know, and I'll mention this now, some of the slides that are not included here are from the household impact, and I'll just give you the bottom line result, the Kevin Ummel study. It turns out if you implement a revenue neutral carbon fee and return all the funds to households on a per capita basis, it turns out that that fee is embedded in the goods, generally the goods that we produce, the energy more so, but generally the goods that are consumed that have carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions associated with their production. Well, guess what? The wealthy buy more stuff. As a result, they pay a higher carbon fee and they get the same dividend check. What results here is that those most vulnerable in our society, the poor, the young, the old, and minorities, get a financial bump from this because they pollute less, not because it's an attempt to redistribute income, but because people are now paying more the full cost of the products they're consuming. So the money goes to the most vulnerable and it comes from those most able to afford it, the wealthy. Pretty straightforward transfer. That's it. Okay. The point here, we know what the solution is. There's people out there in the world that want to make a difference. Where do you make a difference? Here's a little bit about CCL, Brett. I want to say, just go ahead and roll through these because you know this stuff. I don't have anything to add here. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. The key to it is respectful relationships, going in, starting with appreciation and building relationships, not just with your members of Congress. We focus there, but on the people that influence. Our core values, read through it. It's a fabulous document. I'm sure it's on the website. You read through these and you will be proud to be a part of the organization. Is it working? I think it's useful to crow about the results. We have, so here's what Mark said at the conference. If we add 2,000 more supporters, and it may have happened by now, it'll happen by the end of the month, we will have doubled every year since our inception 10 years ago. We'll be up to about a little over 90,000 members. You can see the results here. Crow about these. It looks like it's working. Here's what we do. This is Todd says, this is the answer to the question. If I join CCL, what'll I do? Absolutely talk about this. Here's what we do. You're part of the community, and these are the things we do. Go ahead and roll forward. I would give people the impression that we're gaining traction. It's working. The climate conversation in the country to this point has been very adversarial in nature. We've come at this with respect and appreciation. We've come right to the center, right? And we're pulling both sides toward us. With our approach, it appears the fog of war is beginning to lift. And what folks are seeing is that there's actually some common ground on climate. There's a lot we have in common. you know, a lot of folks are okay with charging an appropriate price for pollution, returning all the funds. Here are some of the results. The climate resolution is not something we're emphasizing so much right now. I would really focus on the Climate Solutions Caucus, which we really helped generate. We were the ask to the resolution before, started by Chris Gibson and then picked up by Elise Stefanik. The Climate Solutions Caucus is now up to 31 on both sides. I don't know if that last one has been announced yet, but this is a clear success. And some of the members of Congress that discuss this make clear, and if you were at the conference, Curbelo made clear, who's co-chair, the Republican chair of the caucus, that it is our approach that has made such a difference and allowed a lot of members of Congress, given them the leeway, if you will, to join, to take another look at the climate issue and to join the caucus. And one of the things Danny said, which is really interesting, it's clear that the people that join the caucus, the members of Congress that join, become more climate friendly as a result of being a part of that body. Here's another big win. The Climate Leadership Council, you guys know this. Schultz is on our advisory board. Schultz and Baker are two huge names in that sort of classic, in the Republican guard, Republican leadership. These are people that really have respect on that side of the aisle. They went to the White House on February 8th. You can look up this document. And it's a policy, it's not our policy, it's similar to ours, but it's got those two things, right? Put a price on carbon, they start higher than we do and go up slower, and return all the funds. So, you know, people thought that Republicans would be a no on this. We're making real headway. Go ahead and move forward because I want to wrap up. In fact, go to the next two slides. The Years of Living Dangerously were on TV. Episode 6 was about pricing carbon, really showing it as the best solution, and 7 was about CCL in particular, and the work that we're doing and the difference that we're making. We're getting some notoriety out there. Next slide, I think, is the last one I'm going to actually talk about and then take questions. You know, very reputable advisory board, depending on who you're talking to, right? If it's a conservative, if it's a liberal audience, you want to note these names. If a conservative audience, Schultz, the Admiral, these are people you want to point out. Bob Inglis. This is a beautiful representation of the balance within the organization. And obviously, the more progressive side, Dr. Hansen, Dan Kamen. Okay, one other thing. Brett said at the beginning, I couldn't agree more, and I push this whenever I train people in giving these presentations, inspiration. I always end my talk with that which really inspires me, a desire to serve humanity. I think it's in all of us. It's more alive in some than others. I've got quotes from George Bernard Shaw on allowing his candle to burn as brightly for future generations, for as long as he lives, and others. Find your quote, find your passion. Give that to the people that you're presenting to. It's not common. We're not a common organization. We're doing this through building relationships into reaching into people's hearts and accessing in some way their desire to have things turn out for the planet and for their kids. So I'll leave it at that and take questions.
Excellent.
Don't forget the inspiration, though.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Yeah.
Before pivoting, let's just give a huge round of applause again for Jerry. Thank you so much for your team putting together this additional deck that's solutions focused, that stays on those key recommendations too. For those of you that need to get on to your next appointment, thank you so much for making it tonight. We look forward to being in touch, and you are the backbone of why we have success as an organization. So keep up the great work in the field, and we look forward to being in touch soon.